In April 1976, the richest man in America died in a hospital jet above the Gulf of Mexico, and the body stayed unidentified until the fingerprints came back. 6'4" and barely 90 pounds, hair uncut for years, fingernails grown out like claws. The body they found was not the man the magazines had photographed. Howard Hughes had been a record-setting pilot, a Hollywood mogul, the builder of the largest aircraft ever flown, and for 30 years increasingly, a prisoner of his own rituals. The official cause of death was kidney failure, not neglect, not starvation, a distinction the legend keeps blurring. This episode asks what Freud's theory illuminates in that life, and the answer runs through 5 mechanisms working together for 50 years. The same machinery that built the empire, the control, the procedure, the isolation, became the prison, and every lock in it was built to feel safe. This is the story of the best documented obsessional life of the 20th century, told from the record, because the legend has already flattened it. The record begins in Houston, Texas, on Christmas Eve, 1905. The only child of the man who held the patent on the oil drill bit that made the family fortune. His mother died when he was 16, his father 2 years later, and the 19-year-old inherited 3/4 of the Hughes Tool Company and declared himself emancipated. He went to Hollywood in 1925 and poured the fortune into movies, financing and directing pictures that no established studio would touch. Hell's Angels took 3 years and millions of dollars of reshoots, and the perfectionism that would later seal him into rooms was already visible in the cutting room. On The Outlaw, he wrote a famous memo about a seam in Jane Russell's costume that gave, he said, the appearance of 2 nipples on each breast. Then the Air, the H-1 racer, set a landplane speed record in 1935, 352 miles an hour, and the round-the-world flight of 1938 took 91 hours. He owned a major airline, built aircraft for the war effort, and in 1946 crashed the experimental XF-11 into Beverly Hills, destroying 3 houses and nearly himself. The burns were severe, and the convalescence was long, and the story of the opiate dependence begins there, though his own lieutenants swore he recovered without any opiates at all. In 1947, he faced the Senate War Investigating Committee, and in hotly disputed testimony, he turned the tables on Senator Brewster and walked out the victor. 2 months later, he flew the Spruce Goose himself, 1 mile at 70 feet above the water, and the enormous wooden flying boat never flew again. The aircraft was built mostly of birch, not spruce, and the nickname was a journalist's joke that stuck. But the fact stands. The largest wingspan ever flown, airborne once. That is the public life, and it is documented. The decline that followed is documented too, in memos, depositions, and medical records. Now the mechanisms, beginning with obsessional neurosis, the system of rules and rituals that Freud described as the mind's own machinery running without a governor. The documented record is full of the rituals, objects picked up only through tissues, rooms sealed against the outside, and instructions issued for the smallest acts of daily life. The most famous is the Peach Can Memorandum, a 9-step protocol for opening a can of fruit, from preparing the table to the rules for what falls on the floor. Isolation of effect is the second mechanism. The feeling is stripped out of an experience, and only the procedure remains, which is exactly what the memos look like. A memo about how to open a can, a memo about a blouse seam, a memo instructing aides neither to look at him nor speak to him unless spoken to. Effect removed, procedure elevated. Undoing is the third, a ritual that symbolically reverses a contact, so each cleansing, each tissue barrier, each discarded set of clothes undoes the last. Every step of the Peach Can protocol exists to cancel the contact the previous step made, which is why the protocol could never end. Reaction formation is the fourth. The feeling is replaced by its opposite, and the paradox of the germphobic man who lived in filth is the mechanism made visible. The obsession with purity and the accumulated squalor were one system, the fear of contamination and the neglect of the two faces of the same defense. And repetition compulsion is the fifth. The same pattern returns across decades, each isolation an attempt to feel safe that produced more isolation. In 1957, he sealed himself into a darkened screening room for 4 months, eating only chocolate bars and chicken, surrounded by boxes of Kleenex that he stacked and rearranged. In the last years, he lay in darkened hotel rooms, unwashed, hair and nails cut once a year, while aides delivered food without touching him. The same mechanisms that built the empire, the control, the isolation, the ritualized procedure, escalated across 4 decades into the prison. The tragedy is that every ritual was an attempt to feel safe, and every attempt to feel safe produced more danger, more dirt, more reason for the next ritual. Now, the honest science, because the documented behaviors connect to real research, and the research has moved past Freud. The tissue handling, the sealed rooms, the CAN protocol are consistent with what clinicians now call contamination OCD, one of the most common symptom dimensions of the condition. The key clinical fact is ego dystonia. The person knows the ritual is irrational, which is why a ritual torments rather than consoles. It is treatable with exposure and response prevention, the modern standard of care, and the tragedy is that Hughes never sat in a modern clinician's room. The psychologist Raymond Fowler conducted a psychological autopsy of Hughes and rated the withdrawal as a lifelong pattern of retreat under stress. But the method is retrospective and non-standardized. The opiate dependence is attested in the record and contested at the edges, and the crashes may have left brain injury. So the honest picture is a man with obsessive behaviors, chronic pain, and chemical dependence compounding. And there are non-psychological readings, a legal siege that lasted decades, subpoenas, lawsuits, and the rational choice of a man who hated being seen. Now the honesty rule of this series, stated out loud, we never diagnose. The frame is what the theory illuminates in a life, never a claim about what a person was. No clinician ever examined Hughes. The psychological autopsy is retrospective, and the Freudian mechanisms are labels that organize the record, not causes that explain it. Name the circularity risk. Any eccentric billionaire can be read as obsessional. The frame fits too easily, and a story can always be made to fit a theory. The legend outruns the record in specific ways. The Peachkin memo is documented in biographies, but its primary text is hard to verify, and the film of his life is dramatized, not documentary. The claim that his mother's germ anxiety caused everything is an inference, not a finding. And his mother died when he was 16, which the causal story conveniently skips. He was not insane. His business mind stayed sharp for decades, and the record supports a specific pattern of documented behaviors, not a verdict on a person. What survives the adversarial reading is the arc itself, a functioning man who became a prisoner of his own defenses, watched across 50 years of records. The records let us watch the escalation, which a myth cannot give. The same mechanisms at 25, in the cutting room, and at 60, in a sealed hotel room. The man who controlled everything could not control the need for control, and the need built the prison around him. Jekyll made the split literal in weight. Hughes lived the split across 50 years, and unlike Jekyll, there was no confession, only memos. This week, notice the small rituals you reach for when the world feels unmanageable, and ask whether they open doors or lock them. Every ritual was an attempt to feel safe, and that is the whole tragedy of the story. The safety never came, and the ritual never stopped. That is the honest version, Howard Hughes. The best documented obsessional life of the 20th century, read without a diagnosis and a warning about the machinery of control.